going to be sending everybody a link to the recording. It'll be on the YouTube channel, and so you guys can, keep and treasure it always. Because art is the activity or the evidence of that kind of creative activity, just the fact that it exists is important. It is something that, I don't know, there's a subtle incentivization that we all have to make things better, to do something with our environment, to leave our mark. And that's, I think, the drive that goes to creating art. And for this class, what we're going to be talking about specifically is the plastic arts. Plastic means moldable or physical. So the plastic arts, we're not going to be talking about dance or singing. We're going to be talking about the things that are moldable and physical, which is like wood carving, clay work, drawings, even digital art fits into that for the purposes of this class. And I'm quiet every once in a while because I'm going back and just double checking that everybody who wanted to get in is able to get in. Oh, Max says that their audio isn't working at all. This and people did give a lot of responses. Somebody over the weekend just worked the whole time. It's good to be caught up on work. Can everybody hear me now, or is Max the only one?
I can.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So several people can hear me. Okay. I'm hoping that if the audio doesn't work for you at all, I think there's going to be like a tech issue, and I don't know how to resolve that from my end. This is a recording. Okay, Max says he still can't hear. Um, Other people are able to hear, and I've done all the switches on my end, so I don't know. Um, and Caleb said the mic's not working. Somebody said for me to go to the top right, enable the speakers. Everything's enabled already. And if some people can hear me, then it's working, but I don't know. Okay, if you guys all know how to do the hand thing, everybody show me who can hear me. We've got 6, 7, 13. Okay, so almost everybody can hear me. Okay, that's good. All right, if you're one of the people that can't hear me, oh, Max says it's working now. Okay, good. All right. Let's move on then. I, for the purposes of this class, yeah, we are going to talk about the plastic arts. Remember, those are the physical arts or the arts that exist in the real world, uh, or at least in the physical world, outside of dance and singing. But there's more things than that too. And the reason why I think art is important, there's lots of reasons, but one of the things is as human beings, one of the things that helps to define us as human beings, or at least as healthy human beings, is the desire to have an impact. And maybe that is That's funny. It looks like somebody muted me. Okay. Okay. Let's hope that everything works now smoothly. Am I unmuted? Okay. All right. The course that we're in, one of the principal things that we are doing in this course is making sure that we understand how to look at things. A lot of the stuff that we look at, you may not like, and that's fine. I don't really care, and I hope this doesn't sound too harsh. I don't really care what your opinion is, as long as you respect yourself enough to be able to articulate it. If you can intelligently articulate your opinion, it makes it a lot more difficult for people to discount your voice. And I don't want any of you just to be discounted. So art has a lot of purposes, and we're going to talk about maybe a half dozen of the different purposes that art has. One of them is to preserve culture, and I know that you guys have all seen stuff like this kind of style of basketry and things like that. And a lot of people call these indigenous crafts. Uh, they are functional sculptures. And Mary Holiday Black is one of the true Navajo sculptors. Um, I think she's passed away, but she knew how to keep the tradition going. And it's one of this particular artwork was important enough to the culture that she was from that it helped in part to define it. And the fact that her work kept that alive and her work was impressive enough that other people were introduced to the culture because of her work uh, gives a lot of utility or purpose to the art that she's doing. And this is true of a lot of different cultural works. And I think when people uh, say indigenous craft, they don't always intend it to be um, a positive observation. Well, uh, Sophie says that there is an echo in the audio. Does anybody else have an echo? Because I only have one. Okay. So one is art preserves culture, and that is very true. Um, in the late 1800s, when the British were trying to control New Zealand, they made moko illegal, and moko is the defining Maori tattooing. And it a friend of mine helped to bring back the traditional form in the late 80s, early 90s, and then it was made legal again. But that was a huge win for the people of New Zealand, bringing that art back to help um, preserve their culture. Art documents history. It doesn't always show us exactly how things looked, but it does show us how people thought about how things looked. You know, like we talked about, you don't draw what you see, you draw what you think about what you see. And so a lot of these paintings that are historical, I don't know if you guys have been to a night cafe in France, and it does kind of feel like this, but it doesn't exactly look like this. And Van Gogh was painting what it felt like. And I think that's an important documentation. And you look at this and say, well, that's not art. And there's a lot of people that would agree with you. But this idea that art can speak to complex ideas, that's one of the things I really like about it. It's a communication technique, art is. And it's a communication technique that isn't limited to words. Heidegger was a German philosopher, and one of the things he said was the moment you choose to use one word, you've also chosen not to use thousands of others. And I like that the connotations are there where you start thinking about what are the other words that I could be using. And you get this idea that language itself, as expansive as it can be, is still kind of limiting. But with art, you're presenting something, you're presenting what you're thinking about the world, and other people, when they see it, you're giving them an opportunity to think things as well. So you're not limiting your communication to somebody's vocabulary. And I hope that everybody's had an experience where you were in an environment. Maybe it was the natural world. Maybe it was in a gallery. Maybe you were just walking through somebody's studio or you saw something that you really liked and you were amazed at what they had done. And I like that. You see that kind of amazement in particularly very young people when they see stuff for the first time. And when we allow ourselves to be open to that, when we encounter something new, it can fill us with wonder. And I think that in the world that we live in, where we are so compressed into a practicality machine, everything we have to do or everything we do has to have a purpose, that can really suck your soul away. And if you find opportunities to experience wonder, it really opens up things for you. And it may not be that you understand what this artist was trying to do. And that really doesn't matter so much because a lot of the meaning for what is shown to you is meaning that you bring to it or meaning that you develop as you react to it. And so perhaps the meaning behind this is the artist was just trying to create an environment for you to enjoy yourself. And this, okay, it looks like I'm going to have to find another photo. I'm sorry about that. But the idea that art is important for any, I think, is something that is really important, especially as we start talking about the tools of artistic critique. They're just the tools of observing things in an intentional way. And that kind of approach um, to looking at stuff really helps us as we look at art, but it translates to so many other things. And it translates to almost anything where we encounter something and have to think about how our skill set can impact that thing that we encounter. Now, this is an old pulp illustration, and I don't remember. Oh, this is from the 1950s. Okay, and you guys have all seen stuff like this where people 50 years ago or 60 years ago imagined what the future would look like. And I like this idea that fiction informs reality. When somebody imagines something, later on they can inform reality. How many of you are aware that the cell phone was invented specifically because of the communicators in Star Trek? Did you guys know that? The person that worked at Bell Labs to develop it thought to themselves, oh, Captain Kirk has an amazing communicator. I want to make that. And they ended up making it. I thought that was kind of cool. And there's lots of other examples too. Um, right now, NASA is in the closing stages of testing for a deep space ion drive. And that ion drive, actually, they started experimenting with it about 30 years ago, specifically because the engineers had seen an episode of Star Trek where the ion drive was mentioned, and it didn't exist before then. I just think stuff like that is fun. And science fiction movies, or art fictional movies, not just science fiction, but fictional movies, they allow us to encounter ideas and follow through with or think our way through them. Oh, and I like this. Sophie says the video call was because of the Jetsons. So that makes a lot of sense. But when we watch movies or when we see plays or we read books, things that aren't true give us an opportunity to explore ideas that otherwise would be dangerous or hurtful. If you can imagine some of the ideas that people have can be really bad, but by creating a story around it, it allows you to do a thought experiment to kind of examine what that idea might look like if people actually lived through it. If you guys do get a chance to watch like Limits or Twilight Zone, those are really good TV shows. And then here we talked about Star Trek, and I'm gonna have to go through and find those photos again. That's so funny because sometimes they will show up and sometimes they don't. So I will have to. Uh, but here's Martin Cooper who invented the cell phone. Oh, and I can't. That's funny. The site is shut down, and that's why I can't find it. So I will update those for you. Now, this is a problem, I think, for a lot of us. How many of you guys feel intimidated by art? You feel that you don't, because there is this kind of undercurrent that was felt by my grandpa, by my dad, and a lot of other people, that art somehow, you have to have the right kind of education. You have to have the right kind of uh, brain set to understand it. And if you don't, you're just stupid. And so a lot of people don't want to approach it art at any level because they're afraid that they might appear to be stupid. We know they're not. You know, I'd be willing to say that most everybody isn't stupid. Certainly none of us here today. But one of the problems is if we don't have the tools to communicate what we need to, what we observe, the kinds of feelings that we have, it can make us feel stupid, especially when somebody else is doing a good job communicating and they make us feel dumb. And I really, I despise that kind of attitude about art. I'm sorry, I'm looking at some things just to make sure. If you have a question or an observation or anything like that, please feel free to go ahead and just interrupt me and uh, talk about it. Because as I'm presenting, I'm not doing a good job seeing the raised hands and questions people have. Somebody asked, "Do you consider the Halo games a work of art?" I It is astounding to me the stuff that people come up with. I would say yes, absolutely. I mean, look at my background. What I think starts developing as something that is not a work of art is when somebody is lying about their presentation. When somebody shows or use something and say, yes, it's a work of art, when they just slapped it together with no intention behind it. That's what I think is offensive. But so when I see video game backgrounds and things like that, I think they're astounding. I think they definitely are works of art. In this next section, I'm not going to read it to you and stuff, but I want you to really be thinking about the four tools of artistic critique. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. And then after this, I'm going to introduce what we're going to be doing on Friday. And if this works out well, we may do it again on Friday. I don't know if we will. If we do, I will make sure that everybody knows. So, and it seems like it's gone pretty good. So I'm hoping. All right. The four steps of artistic critique, if you guys remember, are describe, analyze, interpret, and evaluate. And we're going to talk about each of those in just really quick. But as we do, I want you to think about these ideas. What is your major? And I know this group is very diverse. You guys, by the time you get to university, you've proven your smarts. You have a really good idea of where you want to go. And sometimes just it takes a little bit of tweaking to find the exact route there. And so I'm excited to learn, through the term, what you guys think about the different majors you're in and stuff. But I wanted you to be aware that what we're going to be talking about, fits into any major. And if you're unsure as to how it might fit for you, talk to me and I'll demonstrate how it can. All of you are working professionals at one level or another. And when I was when I first started university, I was making custom computer cables for people. You know, some of those jobs we have right now may not really be pleased with, but we're all working. You know, at some point, maybe your job is to be a full-time student, and that's a harrowing job in itself. What kinds of jobs do you hope to do later on in life? Do you hope to run your own business? Do you hope to be an independent contractor for something? And then the concerns you have about choosing a job, how much income you'll make, how important is it for you to enjoy? All those things are really good questions. And these questions are things I would like to have you have, hold in the back of your head as we're talking through these tools of artistic critique. So the first one is describe. Does anybody want to take a stab at describing this image here? Oh, and some are just reminding me about roll call, so I will do that really quick. Okay, it's a spiral staircase. Yes, but that's not describing it so much. It's telling us what it is. Who can describe what's going on in the image? And that is the right answer. You are right. But what I'm hoping to do is we need to describe what we're seeing. But before we do that, let me do roll call really quick. And of course, I'm saying that, and the roll call is not coming up. Okay. So is Sophie here? I did. Okay, Sophie, you are here. Excellent. Okay. Is Summer here?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, if you guys can say that out loud, that would really help. Drake, are you here? Drake here. Okay. Excellent. MJ, are you here? Here. Okay. Excellent. Naomi, Hunter. Yeah, you're here. I've said so. I'm pretty sure. Okay. Peyton, are you here? Like I said, if you're here and you have a working mic, just say it on your mic. If you don't, go ahead and type it into chat. So Peyton, are you here? Okay. How about Max? Excellent. Rennick? Oh yeah, you're here. Okay. You're here twice. Your phone is here too. Okay. Saletti? I'm sorry, Silietti. Okay, excellent. Jade? Excellent. Caleb? Excellent. Tyler?
Here.
Excellent. Ada? Excellent. Yadira?
I'm here.
Excellent. Haley or Hallie, sorry. Is Hallie here? Okay. Gavin? Excellent. Ashton.
I'm here.
Excellent. Jethro. Okay. Most everybody's here. That's very impressive. Mayel. Tanner.
Here.
All right. Alexander. Eric. So Eric is not here. And Mason. Are you here?
Here.
All right. Excellent. Is there anybody here that whose name I did not call?
I am here.
And what's your name?
Eric.
Eric. Okay. All right. Got it. Excellent. Very good. Okay. So yes, this is a spiral staircase. Well, let's describe it a little bit. What I see is kind of almost a horizontal arrow right here. I see spirals with white and brown that are alternating. I see some hands right here on the railing. I see, it looks like this is a railing, but it looks like it's, I see these posts that are connecting the railing to the white part of the stairs. And what the process of description does, yes, I can identify it, like was said, as a spiral staircase, but the process of, yeah, somebody says it's a loop, looks like a loop. Yeah, that's good. Oh, and Drake said that the microphone is not working for them either. Looks like we got stuff. Okay. What the process of describing does is helps us to get a little bit more involved. Oh, your micro isn't working, but you can still hear me. Okay, good. Yeah, it looks like a loop. We can identify colors, we can identify shapes, and that helps us to get involved a little bit more with the thing that we're looking at. And so, yeah, you can identify it right away, and that is a good thing. But it also helps to start talking about the colors and the relative shapes and sizes, different things like that. Here's some good questions to think about. And you just ask yourself as you describe, and then you give the answer out loud. What is the content? Are there objects you can identify? The objects I can identify is there's a railing, there's stair steps, like one person said earlier, it is a staircase. There's hands, there's people. I can identify a lot of things. Is a work abstract, realistic, or non-objective? Can you identify a style or period? I don't know about the period, but it is realistic. It is functional. My guess is it might be on the inside of a lighthouse or something, maybe. I don't know. What is the first thing you notice when you look at it? For me, the first thing I notice is just a dynamic spiral. And then the second I notice, oh yeah, it's stairs. And then I start noticing people and different things like that. Is there overall mood or effect? I don't know. This seems to be more just documentation. And what other questions can you ask? Okay, like what is this thing? How can I describe this thing? What are these? It looks like tiles. So there are other things that we can look at. Now, so that is the description. Second is, and the description is, we are asking questions that basically relate to what? What is present? What shapes are there? What's going on? When we go to analyze, this is where we start guessing at how was the thing made. This is Patrick Dougherty. He does these incredible, huge architectural structures, is what he does. And he uses natural materials. But what are some of the things that you notice about this thing right away? Windows on the top end from our, oh yeah, very good. Gavin, excellent observation. Summer, great observation. Yes, absolutely. Now, instead of, I don't want anybody to describe this necessarily, but analyze, we start guessing at how it was made. How do you think this thing is made? And what I'm looking at specifically are these things right here, these sticks. What it looks like to me is this artist uses natural materials, and it looks to me like they kind of weave it together. They kind of mush in the shape and then weave it together. And it's like they're directing the making of a haystack almost, but with sticks. I think that's pretty astounding. If we get pull back a little bit, you'll see that the forms are very organic, and you can see that a lot. There's the window is not angular at all. It's kind of a mushy oval, and you can see the walls are free form. It's all feels very organic. And a lot of that derives, it looks to me, from how this artist has decided to start making it, how the artist is making the thing. Gavin says sticks are woven together, possibly using fire or other heat sources. Some are much more bent than others. Yeah, absolutely. So this second step, analyze, we are asking ourselves questions like, how are the elements, how are the different parts put together? How do the choice of materials affect the piece? I think using sticks that the person finds makes it so that they're not going to be building angular, hard-edged architecture. Do the materials used feel consistent with expectations, or are they surprising? What's surprising to me is that looking at these as sticks, you can tell this is pretty big. Like this wall here is twice as big as these two people walking by. And it's amazing to me how big it is. I think that's the big surprise. How well do the elements fit together? And fit doesn't necessarily mean uh, how it's put together, but do they feel like they're consistent? Is does it feel like there's an overall idea that the artist is trying to work on? You know, do the different pieces, do the choices leading to the pieces that were picked seem consistent? How is the overall mood achieved? And what other questions could you ask? And the other questions, keep in mind that this part is where we're talking about how. How did the artist make it? Or if it's a situation at work, what are the elements that went into making the situation the way it is? Now, for interpret, this is where we start talking about why. What could it possibly mean? Why did the artist bother to spend their energy building it? This is one of my favorite pieces. It was done in the 60s, I believe, by a guy named Joseph Kosuth, called One in Three Chairs. And if we describe it, we have it, the overall is an image, or it looks like it's an image of a display in a museum, where we have a physical chair, we have a photo of the exact same chair, looking like it's in the exact same spot. And then this right here is a dictionary definition of the chair. And I'm starting to think, okay, so that's a description. Analyze, how did the person make it? Well, they took a photo, they found a chair, they didn't make the chair, they found it, they put it there, took a photo of it, and then they printed out the definition. Pretty easy to make, I would think. Now, as we interpret it, what does it mean? Well, the title is One in Three Chairs. What's the one chair? I would think it's this one. What are the three chairs? Well, there's only this chair, really, except this is a photo of a chair, maybe. And then, to be completely honest, this whole thing is a photo of the overall setup. Then we have a definition of a chair. Is the definition of a chair a chair? Well, yes and no. It helps us know what a chair is. It's not a real chair. You can't use it, but it helps us know how to think about objects so that they might be chairs. So why did he do this? Maybe what he's doing, he's not presenting this as his work because it's not his work. What he's doing maybe is getting us to think about that title. Where's the one chair? Where are the three chairs? Do we think about things like this or in this kind of manner? Do we have objects or interactions or things in our lives that we think that are one way that maybe aren't another or can't be used? What I'm saying is, this is a chair. It's a photo of a chair, but you can't sit in it. It's not practical. And this helps us to think about what a chair is, but it's no use either. Do we have things like that in our lives where we think about them as one thing and they actually are not functioning as that thing? This, I think, is a good example of when art is communicating without using language. What the artist is working with, what their actual end product is not the chair, it's not the photo, it's not this thing. And this kind of art, what the artist is doing is creating a space in your mind. They're creating an environment specifically for you to use your imagination and start thinking about what they've made. And I think that's a great example for the interpretation questions. What kind of questions? How accessible is it? Unless you spend a minute with it, this isn't accessible at all. You just walk by it and think, oh, what a waste of time. And that is a normal, healthy reaction. Is it meant for a limited or broad audience? Are there people specifically that the artist is trying to target? And there are niche artists that will only do things that if you're in on the joke, you get it. And if you don't, it's a waste of time. And that's totally fine. Does the work contain symbols? Or rather, what symbols can you see in the work? Sometimes there are symbols. Well, there are always symbols. I will say that. Whether or not they're intended is another story. And whether or not we see them is another story as well. As human beings, everything we make becomes a symbol. And at the very least, it's a symbol of our desire to make something. Think about that for just a second. Is a piece formal or conceptual? In this case, because the artist is building something designed specifically to make you use your imagination, this is called conceptual. It is primarily conceptual. The artist didn't make the chair. What the artist is making is the space in your brain to think about what he's doing or what they're doing. What do you does a piece rely on historical references or contation? Maybe it hints at social and cultural commentary. Maybe the artist is saying we don't think enough, we just react. Maybe they're asking us to think about that. What other things could the artist be trying to say? Why was the piece made? A friend of mine who's a painter, his name is Brian Kershiznik. He says he makes stuff specifically because pressure builds up until there's a rupture and it has to come out. I don't know if that's true for every artist. Sometimes I make stuff because I've got to feed my family. What do you think the artist's worldview is? I don't know if we can determine that, but maybe we can get hints at it. I would think that whatever the person's worldview is, they're comfortable enough in the West, um, Europe and North America and South America, that this kind of chair is ubiquitous enough that it feels ordinary to them. So we can start getting hints at them, and that their worldview includes using dictionaries. How does a piece relate to you? Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the only reason it relates is because it's in our way as we're walking. What other questions could we ask? And then the fourth is evaluate. Is it worthwhile? Is it valuable? And this one, I want you to think about these questions. I'm sorry, I messed around enough that we don't have time to really look at that. And we will talk a little bit about, we are doing symbol designs and drawing upside down on Friday. So between now and Friday, watch these, look at these, and we will talk through this a bit. And I want everybody to do the quizzes, as soon as you can get to it. We'll talk about this, and then we will start going through the studios. All right. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me today. I think that this was a success. It looks like uh, almost everybody was able to show up. Anybody have a hard time accessing it? If you had any, okay, everybody was able to do it. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you on Friday, and I will know tomorrow if we're going to have to do it online or if we're going to do it in person again. So what I would like you to do for Friday is make sure that you have paper and a pen. And again, notebook paper is just fine. I've noticed a lot of people are resubmitting stuff. Please do that. You guys are doing a terrific job. And we will talk about the studio stuff and get that going for you. All right. So I look forward to seeing you either in the virtual world or in the physical world on Friday. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon.